It is said that the United States was built upon the ethos of ruggedness and, more specifically, rugged self reliance. The question we're going to ask and answer on this edition is, who killed self reliance, especially amongst Christian circles? Welcome each and every one of you to this new edition of Irrespective. My name is Gio. And as we continue, and before we continue with the topic, I would like to congratulate.
What happened?
What happened? It would be another birthday for my father. He is 55 years old today, folks.
Thank you very much.
55 years old today. Looks an awfully young 55 today. It is his birthday today. My co-host, and I am his, Jesus.
Happy to be 55. I never thought I would make it to 55. Same for 54, but here I am, and now I'm looking forward to a 56. Good evening to all.
It's a fantastic feeling to look this great at this age. Now, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Many more prosperous years.
Thank you.
Many more great years. And folks, this was something that we had announced that we wanted to talk about on Sunday, and it's somewhat related to Sunday's topic, although we wanted to branch out and make this its own episode because this is a meta conversation that we have to have. It's been a long time coming. We have had delved into the topic before, but more specifically within other subjects, because this is necessarily tied in to other topics when it comes to Christian living. But I think it was important, we believe that it was important to raise it as a standalone, specifically in the face of people, and I'm hearing more and more pastors whom are critical, rightfully so, of many American churches and how they've gone soft on the defense and confirmation of the gospel. And one of their many criticisms is as follows. The problem tends to be that American churches for many years now have preached what they would call an individualistic gospel. The problem with this explanation is as follows. When you consider what the gospel, what the Bible has to say about salvific faith, about walking with the Lord and walking in the Lord, it is highly individualized. Although these preachers would say that that's not necessarily what they're talking about, there is a tendency, in a sense, to start conflating certain things. And if the terms are not properly distinguished, if they're not defined, as it were, then it would lead some to believe that this, in fact, individualism, as we're going to explain it, and an offshoot of that, which is self-reliance, which we believe is biblical, by the way, and we'll explain shortly, that gets undercut, and you're actually undercutting a message which actually aligns itself perfectly with Christian principles.
Well, the people that would be against what we're going to teach tonight would say we are the body of Christ, and we have to think collectively. And I go, we are definitely the body of Christ, but each member is a particular member, and you don't use your quality of individual just because you belong to a body. Now, if you are told over and over and over again, in very, very subtle ways, that you lose your individuality, your capacity, God-given gift to be an individual, all of a sudden you will give it up, and then you will just become part of the blob. And the beauty about the body of Christ, as I see Paul explain it, is that every member in particular has to bring to the body that which God has given him or her. So it's important that you understand that as an individual, you must rely on God first and foremost. But the way we're going to teach this tonight, and I think you will be able to see it, you cannot go around saying the only way that I can be who I am called to be is by relying on others. Otherwise, I really can't bring anything to the conversation, to the body of Christ. So we have a lot to say. We have a lot to cover. And it all started, if I can take a minute to set the scene here, with a young man who approached my wife and I as we were leaving one of the local supermarkets, Publix, where shopping is a pleasure, by the way.
Supposedly.
That's what we've been told. And this is a Boy Scout next to his mom. And he says, "Sir, could you support me in my career?" I thought I was hearing things, but he said, "No, support me in my career." And then, of course, I'm going to be hated after this. Probably I was hated at that moment.
That's nothing new. We already know what that feels like.
And I said, "No, And just for those of you who are starting to hate me, why doesn't his mom support him? Why can't he say, I'm glad Publix is letting me do this because this is for a little support for the troops? No, support me and my career. So if he wants a career, his mom can support him. He can work himself and support himself. But the point is that they're actually training this child in the mentality of the age, which in some shape or form, they teach you how to beg.
Yes.
And they teach you that self-reliance is almost a sin. And if you are going to make it, you need the village. Hillary used to talk about this all the time.
Right.
You need the village. Otherwise, you're really not going to make it. And you shouldn't belong to the village if you don't think that the village should take a role in what you are to be, including paying for everything that you might accomplish one day.
When we're talking about self-reliance, it's important to define our terms. And this is why I began my portion of this episode distinguishing ourselves what some pastors are criticizing from the culture at large and also from American churches. Let me be even more specific. When we're talking about self-reliance, we're talking about the foundational understanding of what that means in an American context. When the founders spoke about a people, a nation, a society, and again, some of you might be watching us from other nations, but we're Americans. We're speaking to mostly an American audience, and we minister, as it were, to American Christians first and foremost. So American Christians have been informed for many years that those things are inextricably linked. But herein comes the problem. You'll find that a lot of these pastors are saying this is the problem when American Christians have adopted the idea of individualism. Suddenly they'll say what these Christians have been taught is that their way of interpreting the Bible is highly individual, and that's perfectly fine. That's what they say that these churches are teaching, which in a sense they're correct. But here's the problem. Once you begin to conflate that with what the founders of the nation, most of which were Christians, were saying when they spoke about self-reliance, neither the two shall meet. We're talking about two distinct gulfs here that can't be joined. So there's an error in messaging from these pastors, number one. Number two, when we're saying self-reliance, we are not saying that you are relying on your flesh, that you're not relying on, as it were, an existence sans God, without God. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that you use the abilities, the gifts, and everything else that God has given us the aptitude for, so that you don't have to be a beggar, a dependent, as it were, on others, on the goodness, as it were. Some will say the benevolence, others say the mercy, et cetera, et cetera. You won't have to depend on that. And that actually leads you to a place where you can actually enjoy freedom. Why? The most disciplined people, the people whom understand that discipline is the guide rails that keep you within freedom, they'll understand the concept. However, if you're a beggar, if you're a person that loves your welfare, if you're someone whom loves to live off the mercy of others because it doesn't really call you to a more excellent living, and you try to justify that somehow by looking at some biblical verses and whatnot, then that's not self-reliance. So that's the second point. We are not teaching that suddenly the Christian is to forget God, is to abandon God, and now relies, in a sense, on his own faculties. Think about it. Everything we have been given has been by God, but God does expect from us, and he makes us responsible to use the gifts, the faculties, and the abilities that he has given to us as humans, and also now understanding the gospel, to put those things in play, not only for our own benefit, but first and foremost, for his glory. You see this over and over again in Jesus' ministry and
How
teachings.
can you glorify God if you don't become all that he would have you become?
Well said.
Paul said something that is, I think, perfectly, it perfectly aligns with what we're saying. You should strive not to have others feed you. If you used to go around stealing, don't steal anymore. Work hard with your hands so you can have for yourself, and then provide for others if others have needs. So you strive for that point where you can help others and where you don't go around needing help. Even the simplest of definitions, Gio, explains this very clearly. Reliance, depending on your own capabilities, judgment, and resources instead of relying on others. Second point I want to make, and I want to go back to the situation of Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
By the way, we don't have a paid sponsorship with Publix. Some of you might be asking, why do they continue to mention the tagline? We're doing it jokingly.
Mom was so happy that her son is begging that I'm actually not as upset at the young man as I am at mom.
Well, the parents, you would think, would inculcate something different in them, but they're
Exactly.
not.
Exactly. So that got me thinking about a lot of things, friends. And I asked the question, what happened to self-reliance? Well, for one thing, psychology. Yes, psychology has hijacked it. Here is something from Rula.com. Rula.com. Keep that in mind because later on you will see what kind of a role Rula.com is playing now in connecting psychologists and people that need psychologists. And who needs psychologists? According to Rula, you will hear it from them. Everybody at one point or another will need mental help assistance. You are going to need a therapist.
Which, by the way, is very convenient for the psychological associations
Absolutely.
and industries.
And I'll give you something now because maybe time will commit high treason again, like it usually does with this program.
Yep.
Psychology has been trying for the longest time to get insurance to pay for therapy, and they have managed it.
They've managed it.
They have managed it.
Even though early on there was a resistance from the medicinal field, shall we say, because many doctors saw it as a pseudoscience, which it is.
Quackery.
Exactly.
That's the way they used to
But then
describe it.
again, when the money is flowing, anything gets validated for the sake of bringing in the dollars.
So this is from Rula.com, and it has to do with reliance. Here we go. Learn how self-reliance can boost your confidence, resilience, and mental health, and how therapy can support you in developing this trait.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that already a contradiction?
I'll read it again, and hopefully everybody can see what you have seen. Learn, you're an ignoramus, so learn how self-reliance can boost your confidence, resilience, and mental health, and how therapy can support you in developing this trait.
But if I'm self-reliant, why would I need their help?
Well, you absolutely nailed it. It seems like this is a trait, which means that it's a quality that you have that God has given you, but only therapy can bring it out, Gio.
So you're not self-reliant. You're needing their help.
You're needing their help.
It's an inherent contradiction.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And we've been pointing this out for years, folks, for years. But you're going to hear more about this Rula and the individual that founded this organization. They have basically put, at the time of the printing of the page, and when I last checked on it, they have 10,000 therapists that are ready to connect with people that need therapy. But you will also hear about their goals. The idea is to make it available to everybody, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to need therapy at one point or another. And as it turns out, the individual he's the founder of this company, he is the CEO, he started a previous company, Jill. And that is to help seniors get out of the hospitals and get the help that they need at home, all once again having the insurance companies and possibly the monthly paycheck.
A lot of money in insurance.
To defray the cost of keeping mom and dad at home. Oh, but that's a beautiful thing. Mom and dad should stay home. I agree, but that's not the point. The point is turning a necessity into a business, and turning something that is not a necessity into a necessity, and then turning it into a business model. One, the elderly. There must be money here in the elderly, in the field of taking care of the elderly. They tapped it, and now they have made a lot of money with that. And the latest venture, the latest business model is everybody needs psychology. Everybody needs therapy. Let's turn it into the connection between the needy and the therapist. We'll be the middleman, and everybody will have the mental health that they need because we will provide the therapist.
Here you have your profiling.
And I'm sorry, and at the end of this, what we fail to see as Christians is how they push us away from the Bible. God is no longer the source. The Bible is no longer the source. The renewing of the mind, you don't need that. You need therapy. And so we are slowly drifting away from the Bible because, Gio, we're putting ourselves in the hands of professionals.
You have just profiled just one industry. And if you think about it, it's just one sector. but it is a microcosm of the commodification of the dependency that we are criticizing on this edition and how it infiltrated itself within specifically Christian circles. I'd like to go back to something I said just a few minutes ago to continue to impress upon the audience the trajectory that we have been taking up until this point, where we have thought, we've been taught and browbeaten over the head over and over again as Christians, that this is something that is worthy of the Christian character, when actually all of the opposite is true. And let me say something before I continue with that thought, because I'm already hearing the critiques and the criticisms from certain persons whom, before listening to the entirety of the presentation, will present their objections because they themselves are in a beggarly mindset, so to speak. They are in a welfarish mindset. They would say, so what you're saying, because this is typical of this generation, instead of listening to the totality of the argument and listening intently to what the message is, they will arrive at what your conclusion is without even having to listen to what the details are of what you believe. So I hear some people in their mind saying, so what both of you are saying is that we should just illegalize. We should poo-poo aid to those that need it. When did we say that? When would we say that? And anyone that has been paying attention to what we've been saying up until this point, it would be absolutely patently absurd. There's only two options. Either you're gifted at misinterpreting, intentionally missing the point, or you're just downright malicious to get at that point where you say that that is what we are teaching. No, what we are saying is all the opposite. There has been a commodification, a glorification, a normalization of something that the Bible itself explicitly does not endorse. It actually condemns. When you have texts, going back to what I was going to say originally, when you have texts where Paul, and we mentioned this on Sunday, we'll mention it again, he who shall not work shall not eat. What was Paul pointing to there? You were mentioning early on in the book of Acts, we see that the early Christians, the first Christians, they wanted to have all things in common. It didn't turn out as utopian as they thought it would be. It actually caused a lot of issues. Something I was telling my dad a couple of days ago as we were conversing, talking about our individual points brought to this presentation, what comes to my mind, one of the most glaring examples of how this fails, not only in theory, but in practice, were the Pilgrims. When they arrived on the shores of what today is known as the shores of Massachusetts, they said, we're going to do what the early church did. We're going to have all things in common. There was no such thing as private property. They all had to share in the duties of the land that they were cultivating and that they were living off of, et cetera, et cetera. They soon enough started learning that if you started saying, you know, if others are going to do more work than me, I might as well just freeload a little bit. That way I don't have to do that much work. And then when others saw that freeloading, they said, if he's not going to do the work, then I'm just going to freeload. It was an absolute abject failure in commune living. They always fail because there is a de-incentivization to actually be self-reliant. When they move to a system where this is your parcel of land, this is your parcel of land, this is your parcel of land, you're all responsible for it, suddenly the incentive came back into, we need to work hard because otherwise we will die. You see then, in a very small microcosm, but a good one nonetheless, how the ideas contrary to this, which are biblical in a sense, they have been acted upon or against when you think about it, not only from broader culture, but that thought has been infiltrated into the church, not only by psychologizing entities and individuals and whatnot, but from many within the church themselves. I'll have more to say. I know you have something to mention, but I'd like to use another example for the audience to prove how this has become so normalized and browbeaten into Christians. And one case in point, it's probably the main one that is used to browbeat Christians over the head, how welfarism should be better. It would be the better attitude for Christians than self-reliance on the issue of poverty.
Well, what do we learn from Rula? And once again, Rula connects therapist and patients. What do we learn? We learn that self-reliance can boost your confidence. Isn't that interesting? I need some confidence because, Gio, I'm lacking confidence. And Rula says, you need self-reliance.
But I'll give you some. However, you must pay me so I can teach you.
But Rula says it's a trait.
Oh.
It's in you.
Oh. So they're the experts that bring it out.
They help you.
But you have to pay them for the privilege.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, when you continue following the advice, if not today, tomorrow, or perhaps it's there already, you are needing psychological help.
Oh.
Because why would you need somebody to bring a trait out? Why can't Why can't it be mom and dad? Why can't mom and dad look at their kids and go, this is interesting. I think my son could be a good athlete, or my son seems to have an inclination towards medicine. And so, why can't mom and dad not only pinpoint a gift in your life, but then teach you to rely on the God given gifts that you have within you to make this work?
Because mom and dad are not experts, you see.
And so, why should mom say, now, son, eventually you're going to have a career in this, but we're going to do everything within our means to make sure that everybody helps you? And the young boy goes, that's a great idea, Mom. That way you and dad and I and my brothers, we can take our monies and go enjoy vacations while the people pay for my career and my education to get my career.
But there's no initiative. They're teaching all the opposite.
So Rula needs to create a mindset.
Mm.
And the mindset that Rula needs to create is that everybody's going to need therapy. You are going to need a therapist.
Which is very astute. If you think about it, again, I keep hearkening back to the financial interest in all of this.
Absolutely. So a little more about, excuse me, Rula. Rula's mission is to create a world where everyone can access high quality mental health care. Notice, Rula's mission is to create a world where everyone has access to high quality mental health care. Rula helps you find a mental health expert, Gio, who specializes on you.
How are they going to do that if they really know nothing about me?
Well, you apply, of course. You
Mhm.
let them know what your needs are and where you're coming from, and they go, we've got the therapist that you need, and they make the connection.
Interesting.
It's like eHarmony and all the other things that match you perfectly.
Well, psychology has made it a point to convince people that there's, what do they call them, personality types and traits and temperaments and all these other different things, and they can fit you inside of a box. It's basically how a lot of these industries work.
So, Gio, God can't help you work things out in your mind, issues
Right.
that you're facing.
No, it's too
difficulties.
antiquated.
No, it's too
No.
antiquated.
And
So
spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
We're beyond that.
So here's a little more from the Rula page. Partnered with Aetna, Cigna,
Oh,
Optum, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and others. They've done it. Because now, even if you buy in, let's say you buy the lie that you need professional help, you need a therapist, you need a shrink, but you go, it's so darn expensive. I guess I have to stay sick in the mind.
a question to ask you: if they really want to help people, why don't they just offer this at the very low cost or almost free? If they're really wanting to help
These are
people,
professionals. They have trained hard.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yes.
And like we said at the beginning,
Mhm.
they've been looking for this all the time. And the insurance companies have said, yep,
commodification of being beggars.
exactly. So now they've got the insurance companies paying for treatment even more. This is from the Why We Are Here portion of their page. Each year, more than 65 million Americans seek help for a mental health condition.
That's interesting.
And due to a broken and frustrating system, 2 out of 3 of those individuals give up before ever getting the help
What is
they
that?
need.
A little bit more than a fifth of the American population, right?
Where are we at? 360?
Around 360. Yeah.
So Rula says we can do better. We must do better. Our team is here to do just that. Our mission, once again, our mission is to create a world where every person can have access to high quality mental health care. We recognize that mental health issues can be complex and multifaceted, and we are dedicated to treating the whole person, not just the symptoms. So this is for everybody. And eventually, everybody's going to need this. We're building the future, yes, they are, of mental health care, a comprehensive behavioral health solution that helps every person, notice helps every person access high quality care from a licensed professional at a time that works for them and at a cost that they can afford.
Are we talking about the industry where, for example, infidelities and suicides are among the highest in the nation? We're talking about that group of people. That's like those group of experts who can't seem to heal themselves.
I was watching a television program, and here comes a commercial from another pharmaceutical company, and they have taken a product that supposedly was developed for people who suffer from diabetes. And they started very astutely pointing to the fact that people lost weight on this medication. And then towards the end of the commercial, they're saying, and the possibilities of helping you avoid cardiac events by using this med is there also. So now we've got that medicine being applied to diabetics. I know a doctor who is applying it to himself because he doesn't have the discipline to lose weight.
A doctor who doesn't have discipline?
To lose weight. He
Interesting.
tells his patients, because you know how it works here in the States, right? You go to your doctor and you say, my nail hurts. You need to lose weight and you need to do exercise. My tooth hurts. You need to lose weight and you need to do exercise. My hair is falling out. You need to lose some weight and you need to do exercise.
And Visarula.com.
And so this doctor is shooting himself up. The last time we spoke, he said, I have plateaued, so I have to use a little more because I'm putting the weight back.
Interesting.
So it's for diabetics. Now it's being used for weight loss, and you got to have the weight loss because they won't tell you it's for the aesthetics. It's so you can be healthy.
Right.
And now to prevent possible cardiac events.
By injecting yourself with artificial drugs? Very interesting.
Do you have any idea how much this medication costs?
I know it's expensive. Very expensive.
And how many persons are getting on this already?
Because it's the easier route.
So now, if I am part of the psychology kingdom and I am part of the merchandise peddlers, I have to get you to believe every time you hit a crossroad in life, you need professional help. I'm going through a crisis with my mom. I can't deal with this no more. Please, Rula, can you help me? We can connect you to a mom specialist. I'm having issues with my sisters. We just don't get along. That sibling rivalry out here is like the Civil War. We have a therapist for you.
That's pretty bad. What are the names of the sisters? General Lee?
But you can see where I'm headed with this.
Sure.
You can see where they're headed with this.
Yep.
Everybody's going to need help.
Exactly. Let me mention something here. As I said before, that I wanted to complete that thought because some of you might still be thinking, well, Gio, in a more Christian context, how does this appear? Our distancing ourselves from what you guys are presenting is good. Self-reliance. You said poverty. I'll bring it up. One of the things that you have to understand, folks, that is important for Christians to do is to understand the implications of things. Because there's the outward presentation. We've just given you one example. Rula, they'll give you the particular outward presentation because they want you to buy into the idea of what they're trying to sell you. This is marketing 101, by the way. You don't focus on the product or service itself. You focus on how excellent it is, on the benefits that that's going to provide you, the conveniences, so on and so forth. You're not necessarily selling the idea or the product itself. That's how marketing works. Well, it's the same thing. The same thing has happened inside of the church. But when you look at the implications of the things and also the effects, think about the GLP-1 injections and the pills and everything else that people are taking now, just as an example, to lose weight. What they are trying to do is get people whom don't want to put in the work to lose the weight that they have gained because they have no discipline, they have no mouthly discipline to find a shortcut to do it. And they know that there's plenty of people out there that are willing to pay for it. So therefore, there's a market. But what you start inculcating in those very same people and start re-emphasizing is you don't have to do any work. You don't have to actually do the difficult work that comes along with staying healthy, ensuring that you're eating healthy and whatnot. We'll give you this convenience, but you'll have to pay for it in order to maintain it, which, by the way, at the end of the day, they're finding that these GLP-1 injections and these other things, as a side note, they not only come with short-term bad effects, but they also come with long-term effects in the long term. So that's another topic for another day. But now let's go to the issue of poverty. Talking about implications and things that are, some will say unintended consequences. I actually think that the people whom design these ideas and infiltrate them into the church, they actually do have a particular intent in mind. Consider this. How is it that in American churches and throughout Latin America and other places, poverty has been virtually exalted? Yes, exalted by the church. When throughout the entirety of the scripture, you'll find that poverty is not seen by God at all or by anyone else as a blessing. But they'll tell you, they will say it without saying it explicitly. This is the state because, for example, look at what Jesus says. Jesus said he had nowhere to lay his head. Jesus was not exalting his lowly condition when he comes to us first as a dying servant, as it were, resurrected servant. That was not the purpose, as it were, of his first coming. It was so that he would die and resurrect for the sins of humanity, to give, as it were, to humanity eternal life through his sacrifice. But they'll focus on things like that, and they'll say, you see, this is why you have to be very careful with riches, because riches necessarily then they turn out to be a sin. Wait a minute. So we have Abraham, we have Job, and we have other people in the Bible that it says very explicitly that God blessed them because they believed God and they honored God and they trusted God. You see that God dispenses, one of the blessings that God dispenses in the here and now are riches, are wealth for those that put the kingdom of God first.
In the Old Testament, for the Jews, poverty was a curse.
It was a curse. But here you have modern Christians who will tell you, no. You see, the state that we need to be in, that is the thing. But you know what I find interesting, folks? What is the unintended consequence of this? You preach that so much in pulpits. Eventually, it acts as an agent of discouragement, a de-incentivizing agent to people who say, you know what, then I guess I shouldn't strive for the betterment of myself. I shouldn't strive for the betterment of my family. I guess what they're saying is that it is better to be a beggar and better to live in a lowly state where I don't know where my next meal is going to come from. So I guess I'll stay in that state because it's a more glorified state. You see, we're profiling, even though in these small examples, how the incentivization toward beggarliness, if we can use that word, and against self-reliance turns to be a very, very bad
But
thing.
hasn't the Catholic Church been pushing this for the longest time?
Absolutely.
They tell you that
Absolutely.
their highest and most devoted people will actually take an oath to poverty.
But the Vatican doesn't seem to do that, though.
Well, but maybe our friends are asking, and who are these amongst the Catholics that are like they're most spiritual? The priests.
The priests, the nuns, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, everything that they're making, in a sense, well, the lower tiers, not the higher tiers, but the lower tiers, it basically goes back to the Vatican. And let me tell you something, don't let anybody find out, especially those of you who are Catholics. The Vatican even has its own bank, has its own treasury. The Vatican is basically its own nation state. That's how rich they are and extensive their portfolio is.
There's a Catholic church really close to where we live. They have 7 services every day. And in each and every one of those services, the collection is taken. You should see the way that place gets packed and the amount of money that they collect.
Yep.
And yet you talk to one of the priests because they're out and about, and you go, this individual doesn't have much in life. And if you approach him personally, he can't help you. And yet you and I, working people, if somebody approaches us and says, listen, pal, I'm hungry. Could you spare $1 for a meal? We can go, sure.
Yeah.
While here around town, we constantly see, and my wife is a witness to this, and even she has noticed that a lot of the priests of these particular churches around town, as we go out for a breakfast or a meal, these priests are out and about with the members.
That's right.
With the parishioners.
That's right.
And they're getting their meals paid for.
It's a great gig when you think about it.
Well, I don't want it. I don't want it. If I have to rely on you and your kindness,
Exactly.
and I thank God for you and your kindness and everybody's kindness, but how can you feel realized and fulfilled as a human being when you are always on the receiving end and never on the giving end?
It's a negation of the responsibilities that God has placed
And
over
if
everybody.
you're going to strive for something, this is what Paul taught. Strive to make enough, earn enough for yourself and for you to share.
Yep.
Yeah, but these people are doing a tremendous thing. These people are doing a tremendous thing, and they choose poverty so that way they can just serve God.
Yeah, right.
Well, Jesus served the Father, and Jesus wasn't lacking.
Yeah.
Well, but wait a minute, you two. The Bible says that he impoverished himself so he would make us richer and enrich us. And do you know what that means? Because some people will tell you, yeah, he impoverished himself. He had nothing. It seems like he had a house. And Judas stuck around because he was taking part of the money. So some money was coming
profiles
in.
that he was a thief of the money box.
And so what Jesus was actually doing was always giving away whatever was coming in and sharing with the people, but he was producing.
Yeah.
Furthermore, he did this for us, not so that we can do it for others. What does that mean? Well, Jesus came down here to redeem us, to pay the price for us. So he took the curse upon himself so that we don't have to walk in the curse. So when somebody tells you you need the village to provide for yourself, for your career, for your tomorrow, tell them, no, that's not the way it works. The way it works is mom and dad have taught me, God himself has taught me that I must provide. What did Abraham say to the high priest, Melchizedek, when he came around asking for a little donation?
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to take the tithes, and that's going to go to God. You are his representative. And what I need to pay my servants, which they happen to serve as the army, the rest you keep, lest you or somebody else goes around saying. He actually said it to the
King of Sodom.
Yeah. Lest you go around saying, we have enriched
Exactly.
Abraham
And not God. Yep.
Listen to the mentality of this man.
Abraham was a self-reliant man.
Absolutely. And so were the rest of these people that we call heroes in the Bible.
Yes.
They didn't go around begging, and asking somebody else, hey, can you develop me? Can you develop my career? Think upon these things, because things are changing in America, and you need to get back to this mentality that pleases God, not just for yourself, but for your kids and your grandkids. Because once the system gets them and turns them into beggars, then they're going to be filing all these applications all the time. I need help for this. I need help for that. I need help for the other thing. Make sure you teach your kids and your grandkids self-reliance.
Ultimately, I think we've seen this, and we can speak from experience on the matter. And if any of you will identify with this, you'll know that what we're saying is true. It's not just an anecdotal thing. It's something you can observe in human behavior. Typically, when you have those whom are preaching dependency on them or dependency on the entity that they represent, you're typically talking about someone who wants to control you. And that's one of the ultimate messages that we wanted to communicate. Be very careful with the entities, whether they say that they're Christian or not, whom will preach to you and try to justify the beggarly mindset. The fact of the matter is that, and this is a contradiction which I can't square that circle, and neither do I want to, because it's a contradiction that can't be, the square can't become a circle. How can Christians quote things such as, God has made me more than a conqueror? God has given me the keys to victory. He is my protector and my provider. And yet you see these very same persons whom don't actually use any of their resources, whether physical, monetary, or otherwise. Mental is another one. They don't do anything, as it were, to actually improve, for example, their mental station in life, their physical station in life, their monetary station in life. How is it possible that we can even read things just like what Jesus says about the parable of the talents? You see that God is distributing, Jesus says the master's distributing these things, and he wants you, as it were, to multiply them. We read things like that and we don't think, boy, if God has given me this life, he's giving me these faculties, he's given me these responsibilities, he's given me these abilities, why don't I multiply them? They don't see that, as it were, as an abdication, an irresponsibility on their part when they're not multiplying those things, not only for God's glory, but eventually that has positive benefits if you use them properly for yourself and for those that surround you. The beggarly mindset actually goes against that very thing. And it's something that needs to be detailed, lest people continue to go down this path where then they ask themselves, but why am I in this situation where I'm constantly seeking other people's help and dependent on others? Guess what? It's because you've listened to those whom have preached to you that the beggar's mindset is Christian, when in fact they have taken you away from the very essence of what New Testament doctrine teaches, which is essentially self-reliance. Godly inspired self-reliance is, as it were, the Christian, or part of the Christian ethos.
I'm going to finish my part with the following, Gio. I hear young kids saying the following all the time: I can't do this. I need some help with this. That's not something I can do. And every time I hear these kids saying these things, and mom and dad saying, it's okay, breathe, take a time out. We're going to talk to your coach, your ability coach, which it seems like he's disabling you more and more, but just breathe. You'll be able to handle it.
Don't forget the emotional support animal.
I can't deal with the application. I don't know what to do with the television. They can't do a thing.
Yeah.
Every time I hear one of these kids whining like this, I think of Pat Summit. And the story she told, she happens to be, well, she passed, one of the most successful coaches in the history of women's basketball, collegiate basketball. And she said her dad taught her the most important lesson that she would need in life. And this is the way the issue went down. Pat, get on that tractor and do this, 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 and this before the end of the day. And she looked at her father and said, how can I do this work on the tractor? You've never taught me how to use the tractor. The key is in the tractor. Turn it on, figure it out.
Yeah. But he taught her self-reliance.
Absolutely.
He taught her self-reliance. There you have it, folks. That's what we have for you on this edition of Irrespective. Once again, we want to wish my father a very, very happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to those of you that left comments wishing him a happy birthday. We will be back on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next edition of Irrespective. Please do not forget, folks, to donate. It helps us to continue to put out this content for your edification. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. You'll notice that there is a QR code in the upper left corner of the screen. You can simply scan it, or you can click on the link that is beneath the video player for the link to PayPal services, which we are using to process that patronage. Also, do not forget to follow us on the socials. We are on X. You'll find that the address is there. And last but not least, remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up, and also to share our content, whether you're watching us through X, through YouTube, or through Rumble.
One small detail here. Happy anniversary to my wife.
That's right.
We got married 46 years ago on my birthday. And so
Wait a minute, but if you're 55, we're going to have to amend. See, this is we were not supposed to.
We got married when we were young.
Oh, okay, got it.
This is the part that we weren't supposed to let out, but it's out now. So happy anniversary to my darling wife.
That's all for now. Until the next occasion that we gather, may the Lord shine